The latest Despicable Me movie is dropped in theaters, so today I'm going to stop and rank all 6 Despicable Me and Minions movies from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 6 films. My list is not the right list, it's just my list. And I would love to see yours. Also, if you're into the other Illumination films, I did rank all of the films a year and a half or so back. You can check that out somewhere up here when this video is over with. Let's get started. In last place, Minions. On paper, I totally get what they were going for and why they thought the Minions would make for great spin-off material. Ever since they debuted in Despicable Me, they have been beloved by kids. They're adorable, they steal scenes, they're filled with all sorts of moments, and so you say, these characters are very popular, people love to see them, let's make a movie of just them.
Oh, hello, papagena. Tu le bella con la papaya.
But the exact qualities that make them great when added into someone else's story is exactly why I think this is a really bad concept for a spinoff. The Minions inherently are designed to be comedic relief. They're designed to be side characters that do weird, wacky, wild things. Even built into them, they don't speak a language that we can understand. They speak in very simplistic combinations of a bunch of different languages where you can make out a random word here and there, and that's what makes them so adorable. They're not meant to grow and change, have big character arcs, or anything like that. They're designed for very simplistic, charming humor. So when you build a movie around them, it's very difficult for them to carry the weight of the entire film because they don't do any of the things that normally are required to lead a movie or drive a story, where they're not growing, they're not changing. And, well, Kevin's kind of the lead character. He's kind of the lead character, but still we got this language barrier and they're kind of set in who they are. And so it just doesn't fully work for me. Then you get into the particulars of it. Right out of the gate, I think it kicks off with a very tone-deaf sequence of a quirky, goofy death montage, which is really, really dark humor for a movie that's aiming for 5-year-olds, where they make friends with someone and then accidentally kill them. That's really dark humor, considering everything else kind of going on in these movies. The idea of Felon Con, I suppose, works well enough in the world of these films. It's not like a terrible idea, but it's also basic enough that it feels like something that, you know, my kids would come up with that you throw into Despicable Me 10. When you put it all together, the Minions are a fantastic spice character. They make something else better by seasoning it and adding flavor to it, but you don't eat a spoonful of salt or whatever your favorite spice is. You eat it straight. It's pretty gross. The Minions in Despicable Me, thumbs up. Minions in their own movie, despicable. Number 5, Despicable Me, or simply put, I feel like this franchise is played out, where at this point in time, they've just lost what the franchise is all about. They've burned through all of their good storylines, so they're just desperately kind of going for little sequences, little gags here and there, but there's not a strong central story or anything else left to do with these characters that's interesting at this point in time. So you get to this movie, and it's bookended by these 2 bits about Gru and his high school rival who's out to get him. And then the whole middle section of the film, the hour and 15 minutes between the setup and the conclusion, is just a series of subplots where they're in hiding. Gru is learning tennis. The girls are learning karate. The mother is getting a job at a salon and messes it up. And Gru is being blackmailed. Gru is struggling to get along with his son and connect with him. It's just subplot on top of subplot just to set up gags. And then in the middle of this, you've also got the Minions that are back at the base, getting tested on, getting the super soldier serum, turning into superheroes. And it's a bit that would make for a fun short on the Blu-ray. But in the movie, it's a subplot that doesn't really go anywhere. None of these things build up to have any real significance on the main plot other than revealing the location of our characters. And so it's just scattershot, and most of it has nothing to do with this basic concept of Gru as a supervillain that falls in love with these girls through parenting and deciding he wants to raise them. There's something more important than being the greatest supervillain in the world. We just lost all of that. And he's playing tennis now and trying to impress the neighbors.
Why can't you be more like your sister? She lies all the time.
No, I don't.
See?
Do a number of the jokes land? Yes, they do. A number of the sequences in here would work well as a short on the Blu-ray. But as for the movie as a whole, it's harmless, it's fine, my kids were entertained enough, but it doesn't have the heart of the original film, it doesn't have the wit of the original film, and it's lost the original premise of the entire franchise, and we're just left with superficial jokes. Next up, Despicable Me 2, and I feel like this movie, and really this entire franchise, was always in a very interesting position, because the original Despicable Me, I feel like, immediately demands a sequel, because you watch it and you want to spend more time with these characters in this world, exploring all the different opportunities that are available. And at the same time, the actual plot of the first film doesn't immediately lend itself to an obvious sequel that fits into what made the first one so interesting in the first place. Because the first movie is about a supervillain trying to do this incredible heist, and he needs to exploit some children to make that happen. And in the process, realizes that he cares about them and becomes a better person. And he stops being despicable. So you get to the second movie, and you want to spend more time in the world with these characters, but he's not despicable anymore. It's now Reformed Me, where he's working for the good guys. And that's now something of an entirely different premise story to explore. And so it always just lost something in my mind, after the first film. The girls get sidelined for a love story, and even to that point, it's more of a spy movie than a supervillain movie, and something isn't quite the same. The villain isn't as strong or as memorable. The whole subplot about the minions mutating feels a little bit odd, and for whatever reason, so many of these movies go to that plot line about the minions getting mutated or turning into monsters in the third act, and it all started with this one. So it's better than a couple of the other times that it did it, but it's got some weird stuff in here. It's got some wacky stuff. It's still full of energy. It still has laughs that work. But immediately after the first film, I feel like they've always kind of struggled to find a plot that you can connect with that has that heart and that's still intriguing. And I don't think it's ever been the same. In third, Despicable Me 3. In a lot of ways, my feelings on this film are pretty similar to that of Despicable Me 2, but I think it does get a boost from two different things. First one is the 80s inspired villain that was a child actor and grew up to be a supervillain.
Dance fight!
I just find that a little bit more memorable, a little bit more fun. His specific plot, what he's up to, none of that is more interesting, but the character himself pops a little bit more. As a kid of the 80s, just some of that stuff just works. It hits right for me. Second thing that I think helps this one out just a little bit is Gru's brother, Drew, which introduces an element of why Gru is tempted back into the world of being a supervillain. And once again, I don't think the overall plot here is particularly memorable or pops the way "we're gonna steal the moon" worked in the original film. But you think of the third film and you immediately think of the villain, and it's the one with Drew. So there's a couple of those things that just pop a little bit, make it a little bit more memorable. That for me is what elevates it above part two, but they're categorically kind of right around the same of funny gags. Couple things work here and there, but not nearly as strong of a story or emotional hook as the original. Our runner-up, Minions Rise of Gru, a huge upgrade on the first Minions film simply by putting Gru back into the mix, so it's really just Despicable Me prequel film. But this is also, for me, easily the best film in the franchise since the original film, because it's able to go back to the original premise about these despicable supervillains. And by bringing young Gru into the mix and showing kind of his ambitions, everything that he was trying to do at a young age, you're able to create this villain underdog origin story where he's villainous, he's the bad guy, but there's people that are worse, there's people that are bigger jerks. And so you just play into that world, which was the original concept. Right along those same lines, you have kind of all of these different side villain characters that he partners up, the aging villain, the hot up-and-comers right now, the whole Seven and everything like that. It's just a fun mix of ingredients that's what this franchise was all about. And by having that journey that Gru is on as the underdog, you have an emotional hook, but one that's different from what you got in the original film. And of course, with our minions being our title characters here, there's a ton of fun hijinks with them, in particular as they do their martial arts training. And then their spirit animals or whatever come out in the final sequence. I think this is the movie that does some of the best stuff of wild, crazy antics from the Minions, where they're all amped up, and the way they even visualized it was a ton of fun. So for me, of all of our Despicable Me follow-ups, this is the only one where I think it really had something fresh to offer the franchise rather than just more antics. But easily in first place, it's the original Despicable Me, and I simply think they came up with a really fun concept for a family movie about this supervillain trying to make a name for himself with this outlandish scheme that he's concocted, and along the way, he needs to exploit a couple of kids or 3 kids in order to make his plan happen, and in the process, realizes what he really cares about.
No annoying sounds.
Does this count as annoying?
It's tried and true stuff, the despicable villain with a heart of gold, but it works especially in this particular concept where they can just lean fully into it. But the thing that just elevates all of it is that they gave us a great set of characters. Some of that is Gru as the despicable one himself, and of course a huge part of that are the minions that are just absolutely adorable side characters that in every movie, whether good or bad, provide plenty of laughs, steal scenes with their ridiculous antics, and just the simplicity of them, but they work. The silliness, the goofiness, all of it works all along the way. And so they just came up with a good idea, put great characters in it, and had some heart. It's got all kind of the stuff that you want from a family film. So for me, it just delivers the goods. The story, characters, premise, heart, all of it, laughs, it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video and want to know my thoughts on the rest of the Illumination films, you can check out that video right over there. Hey, thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV to